Hello, Mama. I'm here. I'm here, ready to go. So's Aaron. We're ready to talk about everything Maple Leaf, whether it be the Maple Leafs, whether it be players who play with the Maple Leaf emblazoned wherever, and also teams that play in Canada that might not all be Canadian players, but still. That's who interests us. That's what we talk about. And Aaron, how's your day going?
Day's been going all right. It hasn't exactly been the driest of days, but other than that, it's been pretty decent.
I was out in the convertible in
I'm
the
kind of
rain.
jealous.
In the rain. Started raining. Now, the nice thing about a convertible is if you're moving and the faster you're moving, no water gets in the car, even though you have the roof down. So you cut into that. It's like I guess we learned in physics, just because you get from point A to point B faster, if the rainfall is consistent, it doesn't matter how fast you get there because the faster you go, the more of the rain you hit. It's sort of a geometry topic, sort of, kind of. But anyway, because of the windshield, the water goes right over your head, and you're cutting through the water, and you don't get wet till you stop, and then you get soaked because it rained really hard. It was funny. I had the roof down. I could hardly see through the windshield, and I had the roof down. So it was a funny experience. Bev and I really enjoyed it. How about you? Anything fun happened to you today?
No, everything. Put it this way: nothing caught on fire, nobody died. So I think that on the whole, it was a pretty decent day.
Oh, okay. Well, on a better note, let's talk about a team that you're hoping will be on fire. And you don't mean literally, you mean figuratively, and that is the Toronto Maple Leafs. But one of the issues they're going to have to deal with are challenging contracts. Talk to us about them.
So, as everybody who's following this channel knows, the Leafs have taken on quite a few different contracts for their bottom six. Uh, you know, uh, there's aggressive free agency acquisitions, trades, even Gavin McKenna's entry level contract that he signed on the final day of development camp on July 3rd. Um, some contracts are better than others. As it currently stands, the Maple Leafs are currently $2.75 million over the cap. Now, they're allowed to be 10% over the cap as it currently stands. So they've got another $8 million that they can, or $7.25 million they can add to their cap before they've hit the absolute ceiling. But they do need to make sure that they're under that and compliant by the time the season starts. There are three pretty challenging contracts on the Maple Leafs roster going into this season. One of them is Dakota Joshua's. Now, he's got 2 years left on a 4-year deal that he originally signed with the Canucks in June of 2024. His $3.25 million cap hit became the Maple Leafs' responsibility when he was traded to Toronto for a 2028 fourth-round draft pick last offseason. The main issue with this deal is that Joshua hasn't played up to the standards of his salary and has been moving down the lines as a result. Even with the cap rising, it's not ideal to have a player earning above $3 million as a fourth liner unless they provide another dimension to their game, and that's kind of rare around this league. I know Dakota had his own issues when it came to remaining in the lineup due to injuries and whatnot, but his play is going to certainly have to improve this year if he wants to stick around. The second really challenging contract that the Leafs have is the perennial millstone that they've been trying to shift for the past few seasons, and that's Morgan Riley. Um, it's $7.5 million. You expect a little bit more. I mean, he does log important minutes. He's averaging the second most on the team at 21 minutes and 8 seconds at 25-26, and 21 minutes and 23 seconds at 24-25. I mean, he's a top four defenseman on most teams in the NHL, despite only notching 36 points in 78 games. The issue is not really his salary. The issue is whether or not he needs a change in scenery. The length of his deal and his no movement clause might be what scares potential trade partners away, or at least from providing a sufficient return. He's got 4 more years left on his deal, which will take him to the age of 36. With that, he has a no move clause for the rest of his deal with a modified 10-team no trade clause attached to the final 2 years of the agreement. And now the third player is somebody that we picked up for 4.25 per season. That is Colton Sissons, the former National Predator and Vegas Golden Knight player. For the Maple Leafs, Sissons' contract isn't all that backbreaking, just like much of the rosters are, thanks to the salary cap. However, his cap hit is a little high considering the stature of the player that he is. Now, he's never been a difference maker offensively, and that attribute is the common denominator in playing a high price tag for a skater, even defenseman. Instead, he's more known for his two-way game and efforts on the penalty kill and in the face-off dot. Now, those are still very helpful, but it's not exactly rare. And his cap hit isn't blasphemous. He's still an effective player, but the fact that Sisson's salary is just about 140 grand less than what Tavares makes, who's a consistent 30 goal scorer, is slightly puzzling, even if Tavares took an obvious pay cut. So these three guys are ones that are going to have to step up for the Maple Leafs this season if they want to crack the lineup and if they want to help the Leafs continue to be viable.
The Maple Leafs brought in a former Vancouver Canuck and teammate of Joshua's. They're hoping that their relationship will be re-sparked come the regular season. Morgan Rielly, the problem with Morgan Rielly is he's getting paid, top defensive pair, right? And so that's an issue in that regard. And it's his production that's the problem. This guy he's an all-heart Maple Leaf through and through character guy. But unfortunately, character only gets you so far. You basically, they don't have him just for character. They have him for, creating offense, which usually when you expect that from a defenseman, it's from the point, a shot, and he doesn't have one. And that's why the Leafs spent a whole boatload of money and gave away a good goaltender that they had and a draft pick because they felt the guy they were bringing can do what Rielly can't do, and that is shoot from the point. And the last guy, Sissons, he's the kind of guy. I agree with you. That salary speaks not well when you look at it at face value. It doesn't bode well. But here's the thing: he's a playoff guy. He's a guy who plays his best hockey in the playoffs. So again, the switch that the Leafs have done, it looks like at least what they're trying to do is to create a team that's hard to play against. If there's a knock that the last few seasons of Maple Leaf teams, if you could say what they were short on, and that is difficulty. They were not hard to play against. And therefore, in the playoffs, if you're not hard to play against at all, that's a characteristic that'll hurt you in the playoffs. So they're hoping with these guys that they've got the kind of guys that will help them get into the playoffs, which is going to be a challenge. And we always talk about this. That's challenge A. It takes maybe a different set of kind of guys to get to the playoffs. But then there's a whole different group you need, or you need guys that can do both. And that's what the challenge is for the Maple Leafs. They've got to hope that they've got enough players that do enough of both. They end up in the playoffs and end up in a position where they're playing a team and they are hard to play against. The Leafs, who have the most to prove, Aaron, it has to be, I'll throw in Austin Matthews and you go from there.
Yeah, I mean, Austin Matthews is a given. His offensive production has been way down over the past 2 years. I mean, part of that is related to injuries. And another part of that is how he's been deployed under Berube as opposed to under Keefe. In Keefe's last year as a head coach, Matthews started 9.9% of his shifts in the D zone, compared to Berube, where he was 16.3 and 13.5% respectively starts in the D zone. That doesn't help him. So he's definitely going to have to figure out if he can work in Jim Hiller's system and get himself, back into the green, as it were. Morgan Rielly is another player who had issues under Berube. In 23-24, Rielly had 7 goals and 58 points. Now, that falls above his career average, all while earning the second highest average ice time of his 13 years in the NHL. But this past year, he only had 11 goals and 25 assists for 36 points under Berube. So not only is his offensive production down, an area that signals he's at his best or not, but he's also looked slower, less confident with the puck, and out of place. Stolars is another guy that needs to have a bounce back season. He only played 34 games in 24-25 and was one of the best goaltenders when it came to it. He had a 2.14 goals against and a 926 save percentage. 1 year later, you're looking at a 3.28 and an 893 save percentage. That is some of the lowest numbers of his career. The year after he signed the longest contract of his career, a 4-year deal at $3.75 million per. Hopefully he'll have had a chance to sort of get himself back together over the course of the summer, and we'll see if he can bounce back. Darren Radish is another guy that's going to have something to prove. He had 22 goals and 70 points, blowing away his previous production of 6 goals and 37 points in the season prior. Now, it certainly helped. They'd be given more responsibilities on the back end with the Tampa Bay Lightning, seeing 22-42 of ice time on average. But his new massive raise to $8.5 million over the next 8 seasons means he's going to have something to prove.
Yes. What I will say about Matthews is this. What we've learned the past few years is that when he starts in the defensive zone, by the time he and his mates get into the offensive zone and play around there for a little bit, he doesn't have the gas to make it back to his own end. No. So when we say his defensive responsibilities are being tightened, we are not eliminated, tightened. So now what happens is most of his energy, we hope, if you're a Leaf fan, if you're, management, that most of his energy is used doing what he does best, or at least has done best, and that's put the puck in the net. And just to get back to enough energy to get back to the bench so that the other players can play defense if that's what they need to do. At the end of the day, I think that's going to be the subtle difference that might help him if he takes advantage of the opportunity of starting in the other end zone, having a little more energy, and also maybe even a little more energy to shoot, because the guy has a great shot, but we haven't seen it seems, in a long time. Not the kind of shot that we became accustomed to in that 60-goal season. So the Leafs hope that this change, at least we're hearing that's what they're thinking of doing. If that's what they're doing, they're obviously hoping that the energy level that he expends in the offensive zone and leaves him enough on the defensive zone, instead of expending a lot of energy bringing the puck into the zone and then back checking, is a little too much. It's more than a 1.5-minute shift, 2-minute shift in that situation. All right, let's go to the second period and let's talk about Suarez penalty in MLS action. Miami wins.
Miami. Yeah, sorry. Miami was a little short-staffed. Montreal's offense has kind of hit a brick wall. After the arrival of Philippe Ulafroy as an interim head coach, it seemed that they got a bit of a boost, but they scored in 8 of their 9 games leading up to the World Cup break. Since then, they haven't scored in their past 3 MLS matches, which is certainly something that's frustrating. Lionel Messi and Rodrigo de Paul weren't playing, so that left them a little bit short. But the fact that Suarez managed to convert a penalty kick in the 81st minute kept Montreal at 4-10-3, winless in their past 6. So they've got a little bit of a difficult road to hoe if they want to try to get back up the table.
Absolutely. DC United beat Toronto FC 2-1. TFC has not won a game in a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, it's been very difficult for fans to watch, man. Corbiano's first goal of the 26th MLS season tied it in the 75th minute, but Hybarubo converted a spot kick in the 100th minute, powering DC past Toronto 2-1 in obviously dramatic fashion. TFC is continuing the road swing to visit New York on Friday. I don't know what this team needs to do to figure out their offense. It's been very difficult for them to score pretty much at all. They've been having to rely on Gavrin far too much for clean sheets in order to get points.
Absolutely. Minnesota was in Vancouver playing the Whitecaps. Nobody could score in that game, so they tied 0-0.
Yeah, Minnesota's gone 0-3-3 during a 6-match winless streak. Their goalie Calendar got his 5th clean sheet over 17 starts in his first season. Takaoka had 3 saves for the Whitecaps. He were 10-3-3. It was his 7th shutout in 15 starts this season and his 34th on 114 career starts. Vancouver has outscored Minnesota 9-1 in 2 wins last season and leads the all-time series 7-6-6. But Minnesota hasn't won since May 2nd when they beat the Columbus Crew.
The Alouettes were visited by the Ticats. They won 31-18 in a game that the Ticats could have easily won in the final minutes, and a little Argoitis kicked in.
Yeah, Montreal was down 18-17, less than 3 minutes left. Jose Malatos Diaz converted 2 field goals and added a single before running back Travis Theus sealed the win with an 8-yard touchdown with 24 seconds left. Just absolutely stunning reversal of fortune for the Ticats.
The Calgary Stampeders played the Bombers, and they beat the Bombers, and the Stamps looked really good. It was an interesting game, Aaron.
52-30 certainly sounds a lot less interesting than the game actually was. But McAllister was one of the bright lights for them. That's Tyreek McAllister. He managed to get 3 different types of touchdowns. There was a rushing, a receiving, and a kick return, all in one half.
In the first half, yeah, he was fantastic. He was incredible that night.
And Vernon Adams Jr. has been fantastic as well. He had his 18th touchdown pass of the season without an interception. Helped him pass Ricky Ray and Darian Durant, who both had 17 touchdowns before their first picks back in 2013. So it's been a while since that record's been broken.
Unfortunately, in that game, he threw an interception as well.
Yeah, all streaks come to an end.
So it came to the end. And then, of course, there was the Argos against the BC Lions. And in watching this game, I have to tell you, Aaron, the Argos this time won a game they were supposed to win. And good for them that they did that. They need that confidence builder. The BC Lions, on the other hand, are playing without their number 1 quarterback. And that's why I said it's a game the Argos should have won. But they weren't playing with their number 1 quarterback either. But they just happened to have sitting on the sidelines, chewing on a stick, wondering, I wonder if I can get in, says the MVP of the Grey Cup they last won. So they're in good shape with what they have as a backup, better than I believe any team in the league.
Oh, for sure. And a 26-12 win is one of those confidence builders for the Argonauts that they're going to need coming down the stretch. Now, apparently, Kelly's x-rays came back clear. So he is expected to be back on the field for the Argonauts for their actual home opener on August 6th. Brady Litster had a pretty good game as well. He connected from 24, 47, and 48 yards. So that's a good sign. Not exactly sure if you've heard anything going on with Liram Hilralahu that might have kept him out. I know that he was mentioned as ineligible due to non-football reasons. I was just wondering if you had any insight. It
sounds like basically they're saying some form of emotional situation. It's mental, not physical, right? But you know what? The pressure of being a professional player in football is really immense. And to be a kicker, there, as much as we talk about quarterbacks and such, but when it comes to stress level, not because of the repeated requirement to be doing your job well, it's the few times that you have to do your job that you're required to be perfect, and anything short of perfect could be a disaster. And what we've seen the past couple of games before this last one is exactly that, the disaster that comes from missing a kick. He missed one and they ran it back and won a game. He missed one and they lost because they lost by a point. So, I think the stress of playing, kickers are human beings. I know sometimes they're treated like goaltenders. People think that kickers are kind of weird anyway. There's something different about them, but they're human. And this is a tough situation for Liam. A great man, a great player. He's a guy that's been really good, and I feel bad for him in this situation. It must be frustrating, and I hope he works things out.
No, for sure. It'd be good to see him back. Now, there were some Argos fans at the last game that he kicked in who are apparently of the opinion that no one short of God could have made a kick from there, especially on the last play of the game, the way it all turned out. So, difficult conditions. There's a lot of pressure. I certainly hope that he gets the help that he needs because he is a really good kicker. The Argonauts need him back in the lineup.
More or less what he needs. It isn't like we're not pressing the panic button here. What he
No.
needs is a reset push. He needs a reset button. He's got to reset to what he's default to his ability as opposed to concentrating on his inability. Major League Baseball, Scherzer. Interesting. He's starting for the Nationals.
Yeah, he's been lighting it up with the Bison apparently, and doing a wonderful job down there. This is going to be his 7th start of the season. He's been off and on the IL all year and was put there in mid-June due to back spasms and a thumb injury. So, he's got a 1-4 record and a career worst 10.23 ERA. But he's confident. He's confident that he's going to be able to do well. He hasn't pitched in Washington since the 2023 campaign, spent 7 seasons with them, and picked up one of his 2 World Series rings with them. But, with the Jays at 48 and 58, last in the AL East standings, it's a tough row to hoe.
Absolutely. Habs, and let's jump right to the third period, Aaron. The Habs and Ducks, they make a 1-for-1 trade.
Yeah, so this is for minor leaguers. They've acquired Sean Farrell from the Canadians, the Ducks, and the Canadians get Sasha Pastujov on the way back. Now, Farrell is the only player with NHL experience in this deal, but he spent the last 3 seasons with the Laval Rocket. He was originally a 2020 entry draft guy, played 6 games during the 22-23 season, and he had 1 goal. Pastujov was drafted in the 2021 entry draft, but has never played in the NHL. He did have a strong season with the Gulls, recording 21 goals and 36 assists for 57 points in just 71 games. So there is the possibility that he's going to be ready to go for the Habs sooner rather than later.
Let's talk about the Battle of Ontario teams, Toronto and Ottawa. How do they compare, Aaron?
Well, the way everything looks, Ottawa's got Florida's 9th and 25th picks in the 26th and 27th draft. They flipped them for William Eklund and Kasper Halttunen, as well as Brandon Svoboda. They also got Andre Burakovsky from Chicago and signed a few free agents. This will serve them in good stead, provided they can get everybody on the same page together. I certainly can see them getting back into the playoffs again. Toronto did have the better offseason, but Ottawa looks to be the better team at the end of the day because they're more well balanced.
How about compared to Montreal?
Wow, this is always a fun one. At the end of the day, based on the free agent signings and the subtractions that the Habs have made, as well as who Ottawa has picked up, the Senators were busier, but Montreal had the better offseason because they didn't have to trade Nick Suzuki and then try to replace him. They're still very close, but it's probably going to be Montreal that's going to be the better team this time around. So the Sens could find themselves in a Habs-Leafs sandwich at this point. So it'll be interesting to see where everybody ends up come playoff time because that's the final bellwether.
Is there a final answer for the Jets when it comes to Hellebuyck?
They're listening to offers. The number of teams that would be genuinely pursuing him at this point is probably dwindled. But ideally, they really want to try to keep him. If they can trade him and get a fair return for him, then they're going to be willing to do that. But here's the thing. I think they would rather keep him. They need to solve that in the next couple of months. Otherwise, starting the season with a disgruntled goalie is going to be difficult.
Speaking of goalies, tell me about the Flames rookie prospect in net.
So Yegorov has taken a big step towards getting himself in there. He's always dreamed of playing in the NHL. Now he arrives here after having spent 4 seasons in the KHL, sharpening everything up. The fact that he has been assigned, has been basically picked up by them. They've got his rights, and he's going to be playing with the Calgary Dinos. Means that he'll be close enough that if they want to get him reps with the Wranglers, he's that much closer.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Canucks. And, well, they've got a guy who's a pretty good player, came from Montreal. So this seems like this NHL roundup here is all about Montreal in one way or another.
Yeah.
Gallagher, tell me about Gallagher and him joining the Canucks.
So here's the thing. Everybody's anticipating Brendan coming back for one last kick at the can. The unfortunate thing is he might not actually have a chance to play against his old team this season, mainly because the trade deadline is 3 days before Vancouver's supposed to play the Canadiens. So he may not be a part of the team at all by that point, which means he could potentially miss it. But the good news is he could potentially be there when Carey Price gets inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. So there's that.
Yeah. All right. Well, any final comments on the news? Anything you want to?
No, at the end of the day, it's been an interesting, silly season. Also, just as a side note, the Bahrain Grand Prix for our F1 fans has been scheduled for October because of the fact that it was originally canceled due to all that stuff going on in the Middle East. It's now going to be in Malaysia. So good news there. You don't lose that race. We still have to see if they're going to make up the other one this year, too.
So it's going from the Mideast to the Far East.
Exactly.
Well, either way, it's East.
Exactly.
Well, listen, Aaron, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate you. And we'll see you on Friday. Thanks for doing this. He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanishi. Thank you for watching, everyone. We'll see you next.